Welcome back to Que Pasa Nashville. I'm speaking to Ana Escobar. She is the new, she won the primary for the General Sessions Judge Division 3. Elections will be August 2nd. Please go out and vote. She's running unopposed, so I think she's going to have the position. And Ana, we've been talking about, as a judge, what type of cases you have. And we talked a lot earlier about domestic violence is a majority of your cases. Why is that?
Well, there are, like I said, there are 11 General Sessions judges, and there was an agreement between the 11 that 3 of these slots would focus on domestic violence. That is helpful because it does take a little bit more training and knowledge of kind of the whole complexity of the domestic violence dynamic to be effective. So 3 of the judges have this slot, and currently it's Judge Gail Robinson, Judge Allegra Walker, and for now Judge Nick Leonardo. Okay,
and that's where on August 2nd that election would solidify your position.
Correct.
So I did not know that Division 3, this judgeship Division 3 was part of domestic violence. It does now make sense because of all the domestic violence organizations that supported you, endorsed you because of your experience. I did not realize that, but I just thought it was part of your thing. But that makes sense. How many cases are you looking at? Well,
it's last year there were 5,500 cases that were prosecuted. Yes.
Domestic violence cases.
Correct. Yes. Wow. Domestic violence cases, and I believe there were over 26,000 calls for a domestic violence situation
in Davidson
County.
Wow.
So the police, you know, it takes up a lot of time for the police. It is a very lethal situation when a police officer arrives at a domestic violence.
We hear so many situations: murder, suicide, you know, abuse, and that role of not just male, female, female, male.
Exactly.
And all the repercussions with children are involved. And I think that's the thing about domestic violence. It's the tidal wave or the ripple effect of it affecting a family.
Absolutely. So studies have shown that a child that witnesses domestic violence is 2 times more likely to either be a victim or an abuser in a domestic violence relationship. And you know, so many times parents think, oh, my children aren't hearing this, or they don't know what's happening, but children have a sense. They can, you know, sense trauma or, you know, some tension, and so children know what's going on.
And they feel it. So really, does your role as a judge really work closely with our Metro Police Department?
Well, what a judge does is they hear the evidence that the prosecution presents, and a judge decides with the rules of evidence and criminal procedure and the law whether this person has met the criteria for being guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of an offense. So really, a judge doesn't take sides.
Correct.
It's kind of a neutral place for the police and the victims to come present their case. Now, what's important though is that a judge be informed of the trauma that people have endured. And so it's important to set a tone where, you know, there isn't a lot of yelling, there's not a lot of impatience, so that victims that have gone through a traumatic event don't feel that nervousness and tension when they come and testify. So my goal is to create an environment that's calm, peaceful for everyone, so that there isn't that added dread or tension for coming to court.
So I'm going to take a step, and I don't know if it's even in your direction, but if you said there's 26,000 calls within Metro Police, and I should be talking to the police department on that, I understand, but you know, as a judge, you're seeing the results. Do you get to see if your decision affects it in a positive way, or do they come back again in front of you? I mean, do you have data that shows what's working, what's not, or do you have data that's working with the Metro Police of, you know, programming, or is that also coming through the nonprofit community to support the police to help educate? I mean, I know it's a big gorilla, but is 26,000 you know, common, or is it just increased? You know, those are things. Are you aware of that, and who is the gatekeeper of this knowledge? If it's a judge, it's, you know, Metro Police. Those are, I know those are random questions, but those are just going through my mind with that many calls.
Well, you know, I did not really understand domestic violence until I started prosecuting domestic violence. I've represented people accused of domestic violence. Like I said, I was on the board of the YWCA for 6 years, and you see that power power and control wheel and you think you get it. But honestly, what I have learned is that there's not one person, one agency that's going to solve domestic violence. It really takes kind of a global approach. You need prosecutors that are trained, you need police officers that are trained, you need nonprofits, you need services for people that are found guilty of domestic violence. So there's a lot of support, and we are so lucky in this city. Actually, when I would go to conferences about domestic violence, we are so far ahead of everyone else. We're about to open the Family Justice Center on Murfreesboro Road, and I hope that that will be a game changer, because that will almost be one-stop resources for people that are victims of domestic violence and child abuse. There'll be nonprofit agencies, therapists, police officers, attorneys right there, and that's kind of a model that is happening across the country. And so we are very blessed to have that opening soon. I believe it's later this year or early next year. So it really is kind of it's an approach that the whole system of people that are delivering services both to the victim and both and to the person accused of it that's going to solve this problem.
An entryway to start educating. Fascinated by this interview. Saddened, you know, maybe 26,000. It just saddens me because, you know, I know of people you read, and I know how social media plays a bigger role in domestic and misreading of words and so forth, that it just gets people into a rage. But I also know that it's starting earlier, and that's a scary thought since I have teenagers, but I also know it's up to me to educate them and resources. Let's go back a little bit, and I want to take a little deeper. Is personally, why do you think you were driven in this area? And give me a little bit about your background. I know you're the first Hispanic, going to be the first Hispanic General Sessions judge, because you are unopposed, but we still need you to vote on August 2nd. But and for someone who is Hispanic, it's delightful to see that you're qualified, you're engaging, you know your field, and you happen to be Hispanic. And and that's how I introduce you, because that is an asset that you're going to bring. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I was born in Colombia, South America, and my parents came here to this country when I was 6 months old. We lived in Rhode Island, we lived in Colorado, and then finally in Nashville. And I grew up here. I went to grade school, high school, and college here. So I've always been invested in Nashville. I've been on 20 different nonprofit boards, government commissions, professional associations. But I've always loved politics, and I've always been engaged with campaigns, local campaigns, and I've really enjoyed that work. It's funny because my grandfather was mayor of his town in Columbia. And then it's funny because my father has no interest in politics whatsoever until I started running. So I think it's kind of in my blood, so it's been kind of fun to kind of connect with that. But what I'm proud to say, in this particular slot, I believe I am the most qualified, and I happen to be Hispanic. But I also believe to much who is given, you know, much is expected. And so I think that I have a big role to fill, and we have a lot to do in this city, and I'm excited to do it.
And I think it is very exciting, because we always talk about the demographic shift. A number of Latinos are here, you know, in different capacities, but we also know that in these different countries, there's a lot of machismo, I mean, where they're the male-dominated, and so there's a culture shock here, and being able to speak in Spanish to the people you may represent would be a huge, I guess, eye-opener opportunity as well. Like I said, much is given, that you have to understand there's a lot of culture changing going on. I would say with also our different minorities, with the different cultures from different countries. So I think it's wonderful that you're going to be part of our traditional system, and it's nice to have a woman of color that can have a different mindset of different solutions. And we welcome you into our judgeship on August 2nd. Don't forget to vote for Ana Escobar on August 2nd, unopposed, and exactly for the General Sessions Judge Division 3. Thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you for joining Que Pasa Nashville. As we talk again about the opportunities and challenges Latinos bring to Middle Tennessee and our Davidson County, Middle Tennessee. So join us each week, and we'll see you then. Gracias.